All right, gents, it's time for this month's story time with Carl. And gents and lasses, I can't forget old Susan out there down under. All right, I gave you all a little different background. I told the film crew while they were here that y'all were probably tired of looking at my reloading bench. So anyways, we have set this up here in the man room. I've started to think about, I know you guys like war stories and everything, but I had this little kid, a relative of the family, digging through closets and stuff where they probably shouldn't be. And when I came walking in, he was digging at shit on my uniform, and he asked what these wings were right here. And I said, those are my Halo Jumpmaster wings. What is a Halo Jumpmaster? Okay, how do you explain that to a little kid? But even when I have adults come in and visit the man room, a lot of times people will pick up my helmet and they'll be like, Carl, why do you have a fighter pilot helmet in your man room? And it's not a fighter pilot helmet. It's actually, it is, but this is what our Halo teams wore. They have different oxygen systems now, different helmets, but still got my rack number on the back. This was what I wore when I was on a Halo team. What is a Halo team? Halo, H-A-L-O, stands for high altitude, low opening, right? So basically, they're the guys that jump out of the airplane at 27,000 feet, and then they open up their parachutes at 4,000 feet. They're finally under silk about 2,500. Gives you enough time to pick a spot to land on the ground. Halo teams also sometimes do what's called a hey-ho, high altitude, high opening. So you jump out at 27, you actually open your chutes at 25, and then you let the wind currents carry you at altitude, and you're actually wearing double oxygen bottles under your right arm, and you got about 20 minutes worth of air, and it takes you about 20 minutes to get down below 10,000 feet, and there you don't need to be wearing supplemental oxygen anymore. You can go a long ways. You can actually go across international boundaries, but honestly, we don't do hey-hos that often. They're really not necessary. We own all the airspace on the planet, so it's actually much more tactical, much safer, stealth-wise. Why have wide open parachutes? They say they're invisible on radar. Nothing's invisible on radar. Hey, low, jump out way the hell up there and come down, hit the ground. There's a bit more to it than that. There's a lot of math that goes into it, calculating winds, all this, that, and the other. Matter of fact, there's a whole row of trees planted outside the headquarters of 5th Special Forces Group where a 5th Group Halo team had calculated winds wrong. Calculated elevations wrong when they were putting them in their altimeters. They went the wrong way for distance above sea level from where they were getting on the plane to where they were parachuting into the mountains. They did their math wrong, and basically when they thought they were at about 10,000 feet, they were actually at about 100 feet. And they found all of them in a nice, neat little circle about 13 inches down in the ground. Not a single one of them made it out, simply because somebody made a mistake with math. All right, so when you go to Halo Jumpmaster School, that's one of the jobs of the Jumpmaster, calculating all that math, release points, all kinds of fun stuff. Halo Jumpmaster School was fun. When I got back from paramedic school, my original A-team sent me to paramedic school. I got back, and Alpha Company, A15, was just being turned into a SIF company. They're now called a CRIF company. That's a direct action hostage rescue unit. Brand new. And in those type of companies, you've got assaulters and you've got snipers. Now, a sniper team for a SIF company has got to be Halo qualified, sniper qualified. You still have to go to Sephardic, which is a hostage rescue school. And I'd already been to 3 or 4 different military sniper schools. That's what I'd done most of my time in conventional military. And 514, that was the Halo sniper team for the SIF company. I was walking back towards my building. My old A team was on the 3rd floor. They were on the 1st floor. And I got stopped outside by the team sergeant. And he's like, "Hey, I heard you just graduated paramedic school." I'm like, "Yeah, I did, thanks." He said, "Hey, I need a sniper qualified medic for my team. Do you want to go to Halo school?" Duh, who doesn't want to go to Halo school? Do you want to go to Sephardic? Duh, who doesn't want to go to Sephardic? Those are like 2 of the greatest schools any Green Beret could ever ask to go for, and here he is offering me 2 of them. Everybody thinks that all Green Berets are Halo qualified, scuba qualified, all that. It's not the case. They're all airborne qualified. In other words, they jump out of airplanes at 1,200 feet with a static line. Their parachutes actually hooked to the plane. You pour them out the back of a plane, you push bundles, you can push dogs, ATVs, anything, and they all open with parachutes, and gravity is going to help you hit the ground. Guaranteed, you're going to hit the ground. You don't even have to try. You're going to hit the ground. Cool part about gravity. But as far as specialty schools go in Special Forces, you've got scuba school and you've got Halo school. I didn't really want to go to scuba school. I can swim, but my big thing was if any real combat mission came up dealing with water, it was going to go to a SEAL team. So I always wanted to go to Halo school. And here this guy offering me a job to be on the Halo team for the SIF company. Now, I had no idea what I was getting into going to a SIF company. They're the most hated, the most respected unit, single company in any Special Forces group. They are the gunslingers. They're all type A personalities, and I fit in just perfect with them. So anyways, I got accepted to 514. I immediately became one of the sniper cell leaders. There's only a couple guys on the team that were sniper qualified at the time. They're very big into Halo jumping, so I immediately had to go to Halo school. Okay, looking forward to it. I don't like parachuting. I'm scared to death of parachuting. I don't like doing it. Which is a good thing, because when you're not scared of something, you get sloppy. Fear is a good thing so long as you control it. You can actually harness fear to keep you sharp. And by that I mean, if right before you jump, you're supposed to check your helmet, all your buckles and everything, and you do, because you're scared. Your life is getting ready to depend on these buckles and straps and stuff. So you check them, you check all your equipment. If you weren't scared, you'd be like, no big deal, no big deal. That's how accidents happen. People don't double check their stuff. It happens. It happens with civilian skydivers. You get these civilians that have got 10, 12,000 skydives, and these guys, they'll just pack their parachute into a paper trash bag and jump out just to say they could do. Oh, it'll always work. If it doesn't, I have a spare. Yeah, that's fine, whatever. Leave it to the Army, leave it to Special Forces to take all the fun out of skydiving. All right. Halo School starts at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, or at least it did back then. That's where we had our wind tunnel. Our wind tunnel was at Fort Bragg, the Big Dragon. And so the first week was there. You learned how to pack your parachutes, and they taught you how to fly your body. They had a vertical wind tunnel, and most of your civilian wind tunnels, it's a big fan underneath that pushes you up. And it's not clean air because it's going like this, it's rough. Well, the military spent a lot of money, your taxpayers' money, on this Dragon, and basically all the jet engines are up top, and it actually pulls air up and recirculates it back underneath. Very clean air, great way to learn. I didn't do a very good job. I wasn't great. I could fly, I could stay stable, but watching the instructors in there, you know, I'm just basically trying to stay stable, and these instructors are literally flying around me, scratching their ears, zipping around me, just smiling, flying around like some bumblebees. And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. But after the fact, they're like, relax, you did great. We've been doing this for, years and years and years. We know what we're doing. There are no better flyers out there than Halo School instructors. Those boys are phenomenal. Past that week, they put us on a plane, flew us all out to Yuma, Arizona. Why Yuma? Because it's dry. They don't get a lot of rain. Rains would cancel out jumps. Now, I went in February. Now, in Halo School, we're not allowed to jump if the winds are above, I want to say it's like 13 miles per hour. Any other time of the year, the winds don't get that high. You do 3 jumps a day. That's it, 3 jumps a day. And they usually spread them out over the day. There were a lot of days we would be done jumping by 7:30, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Literally, as soon as the sun came up, we would jump. As soon as we landed, repack the parachute, jump again, repack the parachute, get our 3 jumps, and then they'd let us go for the rest of the day because the winds would be up over 20, 25, 30 miles an hour by 10 o'clock in the morning. Something I had to put up with. So where a lot of guys graduate with a lot of jumps, I had the bare minimum number of jumps. But no big deal, no big deal. I still got my Halo wings. First jump, got up there, and you have an instructor per student. Now, he's actually got 2 students, but only one of them's on a plane at a time. So I got my instructor, and they don't talk to you or nothing. Those instructors sit across from you. You're flying on either you're usually flying on a Casa 212. Row seats on one side, row seats on the other. And first student got up and went and stood out on the ramp. His instructor pointed, and whoop, they were gone. They were gone. I mean, you didn't even see them anymore. They were gone. The next guys got up, next guys. I was like 4th or 5th. And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm scared. I want to chicken out, but I've never quit anything. I have never been too scared to do anything. And one of these guys was a rigger, and they're female riggers, If he can do it, I can do it. Right, so I did. My turn to get up, walked right out to the ramp. My eyes, I'm sure, were really, really big. And the instructor pointed, bang, I went out and got stable and looked down, and all I could see was blue. And the desert in Yuma, Arizona is tan as far as you can see. I was on my back instead of on my belly. No big deal. I knew what to do. Just roll like you're rolling out of bed. Popped, and bang, all of a sudden all I see is tan, and my instructor flew right down in front of my face, and he went like this. That means, dumbass, check your altimeter. And I looked down, I was already coming up on full altitude. That's how fast you're falling. And I went into my wave off sequence and deployed my parachute, landed, and the instructor was gone. He was gone. He already had his chute repacked. By the time I got there, he grabbed me. He's like, what do you think you did? And then I'll tell you what you really did. I kind of told him. He just kind of smiled. He's like, you didn't die. You passed your first jump. Okay. As soon as I got back, I had to start repacking my chute. He was immediately grabbed his other student, got back on the plane, and he was up again. I mean, the instructors are literally doing that many jumps. Come time for my first test, and the company commander down there, he actually would fly with a camera on his helmet and film mistakes that different students were doing and stuff. And sometimes they were, at the end, they would make what's called the Friday Night Follies. They'd make a little video and they'd show everything that the students screwed up. Well, this was my final test, well, my first test, and I had, so the instructor had me and his other student. We're both going to be on the plane this time. I was like, how is this guy going to watch both of us? All right, so he comes up to me and he's like, here's what I want you to do. When you exit the plane, I want you to do a barrel roll, and then I want you to do a backflip, pull on heading, and I'll see you on the ground. Okay, so I'm waiting for him to tell me how to do this. And he doesn't. We get on the plane, they're starting to start the plane. So I finally bumped the guy next to me and I asked him, like, dude, how do you do a barrel roll? And he said, just like Patrick Swayze did. That didn't help at all. I mean, that didn't help at all. So he kind of chuckled. He's like, same as like flipping, just kind of rolling going on. I'm like, okay, how do I do a backflip? He said, it's just like breaking a broomstick over your knee. Okay, all right. So both of us go out the door, and my instructor is right there looking at me, and he's like, so I did my barrel roll, kind of about as ugly as you can see. And then when I tried to do my backflip, I ended up spinning this way instead of this way. It all came out really great on Friday Night Follies, by the way. And so anyways, I end up landing, and the whole time I'm like, shit. Did I pass? Did I fail? And I asked him when I saw the instructor, did I pass? He's like, oh, I didn't even watch it. I was watching your partner. He's like, you passed on last jump. I just wanted you to do that stuff for the film for Friday night. You already passed. Okay, it would have been nice if he had told me that ahead of time. But anyways, no big deal. I passed that on the video, and I still have this video. My kids get a kick out of watching it. They put it to the music. I don't know who sings it. I believe I can fly. Yeah, that's me in my yellow banana flight suit so they can find the bodies easy. Doing my backflip and barrel roll, looking like a total jackass. Funny stuff. Fast forward, you get the last week and you got to start doing your night jumps. Now, there's power lines there in Yuma, and big high tension power lines. I actually killed a Mexican officer there in Halo School. Man, that boy got fried bad. Came in on the power lines, hit him, shoot laid over the top, and he just cooked right there. They tell you about it. It's hard to miss the drop zone. It really is. Even with the high winds, if you go off the drop zone, you're in trouble. You potentially drop out of the class. And a lot of high winds, but I'd always manage to make the drop zone. Barely, sometimes barely. First night jump. Yeah, but they got lights on the power line, so even in the dark you can see the power lines come in at a V. That's where the drop zone is. Well, we get on the plane and we all go out. It's everybody together. All you got to do is land. There's a couple instructors up there with you, but they always pull low. You pull at 4,000 feet. The instructors pull at 2,000. And that's so they can get on the ground first, have their parachutes already repacked, so they can go get ready for the next jump. I fall, night jump. Basically, you're watching the chem lights on the back of the helmets and back, everything. And I get under canopy and looking around because I don't want to bump into another parachute. And I look way down below me. And there's an instructor below me. He's 2,000 feet below me. He's supposed to be there. But then I start looking for the drop zone. The drop zone should be right in front of me. Well, maybe it's behind me. I start looking around. I can't find it. Wait a minute. There are power lines with lights on them. So I start looking, and there's my rows of power lines. The drop zone is miles away. And anyways, there's a row of power lines in front of me I have to cross to get even close to the drop zone. So I'm going straight towards these power lines, and I'm trying to think, am I going to get over them, or should I look for an out? If I look for an out and try to land over here, I'm not going to land on the drop zone, and I fail the jump. You got to land on the drop zone. Do I wait? Do I try? Do I try to make it over the power lines? And honestly, I probably would have waited the last minute and went right in the power lines, but the instructor below me, he had the same problem. I saw him, and he's like, there's no way I'm going to make it over the power lines. He turned to find it out. And it's easy to spot the instructors because they've got these big 18-inch long blue chem lights, one on each leg, on their calves, so you can actually see them in the air. You can see them on the ground. So I saw him. He actually circled and he found it out. Okay, the instructor found it out, landed on the ground off the drop zone. So long as I land with the instructor, I'm golden. I'm golden. I can't fail this jump. So I start turning so I can land with the instructor. I want to land with him. I'm setting up my jump so I can land with that instructor. Now, our parachutes do about 17 miles an hour, forward flight. They're square parachutes. So if there's no winds, you're doing about 17 miles an hour. Now, that works out good. Let's say there's a 10 mile an hour wind. If you've ever watched videos on TV of civilian skydivers, they'll come in and then at the last minute they'll break their parachutes and they gently touch down on the ground. That's fine, all right? Especially if you have a 10 mile an hour wind, even perfect, even better would be a 17 mile an hour wind, because I could fly my 17 mile an hour parachute into that wind and I would come straight down. I wouldn't even have to touch my brakes at all. You never get 17 mile an hour winds. So facing into the wind, if it's a 10 mile an hour wind, no big deal. You come in and at the last second, when you're about 10, 12 feet off the ground, flare your parachute, it cants, it breaks, and you gently step onto the ground. Now, I had become the master of flying my parachute backwards because it was February, it was the high winds class. So even though we knew we weren't supposed to jump in winds above 13 miles an hour, the instructors would say they are 13 gusting to 13, or whatever the standard was then. Pretty well the winds were too high every jump. And a lot of times you'd be flying your parachute backwards, or even if it was 10 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour, as soon as you landed, you had to immediately pop that parachute because or immediately collapse it by pulling one brake down real fast. Otherwise, it would drag you across the drop zone. And I'd watched a bunch of guys dragged, but I had gotten good in flying in the winds. No problem at all. Didn't even click in my head. Well, I forgot all about the winds. I was so set on landing next to this instructor in the dark that I lined up on him and knew I couldn't see the ground, but I could see his blue chem lights on his legs. Could kind of make out his gray parachute a little bit. It's a little bit of moonlight, but not much. So I come in and I'm lined right up on him. Man, I am so good. I don't want to hit this guy, so I actually sashayed off to the side a little bit, came in at half brakes, ready to do a PLF, parachute landing fall. And I'm like, man, I'm the man. I'm gonna land right next to this instructor. He's gonna be so impressed. Well, I came right by and went right by him. Just kept right on going. And I kind of looked up over my shoulder, and that's when I hit the ground. Pow. A couple seconds went by, and there's this bright flashing light. Bunk, 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 bunk. And I opened up my eyes, and all I can see is this bright flashing light. And I hurt everywhere, like the whole front of my body hurts everywhere, and pain, oh, the pain. My shins were both crushed, just hurting bad, and I can't move. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got 4 more night jumps to do. There's no way I can do this. So I'm sitting there, and what is that light? What is that flashing light? And then it dawned on me, on the back of our helmets, we have a strobe light on the back of our helmets flashing. This thing's flashing right in my eyes. Only one eye. It's only flashing in one eye. And so I kind of bring my hands up to my head. I had hit the ground so hard that the ear hole on the side of my Protec helmet my helmet had turned sideways, and I was actually looking out of the ear hole. That's where that strobe light was. So anyways, I heard another student walk up and check in with the instructor, And the instructor said, all right, what's your roster number, blah, blah, blah. The student said who it was. And the student said, who's that down there? And the instructor said, I don't know, but I bet he's pretty messed up. Turns out the instructor had landed right on top of a ravine, about a 20-foot deep ravine. And when I came in, I literally went lengthwise down the ravine. That's why I passed right by him, turned my head looking at him with my 17-mile-an-hour parachute. To make matters even worse, the winds were coming from the other direction. I hit the ground probably about 30 miles an hour. It sucked. It sucked bad. No big deal though, no permanent injuries, skinned my knees a little bit, no broken bones, hurt pride. I was more worried about failing the course because I didn't land on the drop zone, but the instructor just chuckled. He said it was the jump master's fault, not our fault. In the jump master's defense, when they calculated the winds, our release point should have been somewhere else, obviously, but they are restricted to where they can put the students out. Army regulations, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, they all knew we were going to miss. But that's just how it works out. I had a pretty wild class. The head instructor would make fun of us. He's like, you guys are terrible. I had a bunch of SEALs in my class. They're always joking around. Air Force guys, always joking around. Just me, one or two other Green Berets, old guys. The instructors would be like, damn, and you guys are, it's like trying to train a bunch of Jordanians. So our class became the Flying Jordanians. That's what we became. We became the Flying Jordanians. Name kind of stuck, and the instructors made a comment. They were like, look, you are one of our worst classes ever as far as jackassery and guys joking around, but we have not lost a single student yet, not a single one. And that's a rarity. Usually we've lost half the class by now. And it looks like you've only got like one more night jump to do, and it looks like you're going to be the first night jump, the first Halo class ever to have 100% pass rate. So we were like, that's kind of cool. So the last jump was your wall locker jump. It's a night jump, oxygen, rucksack, M4 on your side, oxygen bottles on the other side, and go to jump. We all exited, and same thing, bad loom. We were way off the drop zone, but I caught where I was at, kind of forward glided a bunch, got under canopy, and actually came down and landed. And when I landed, there was another instructor actually landed right next to me, and he's like, you pulled a little low. And I'm like, not me, you're talking about somebody else. And he just kind of played it off a little bit, no big deal. Anyways, I go over the truck, the bus there, got my parachute packed up, the instructors are coming up, and one of the instructors saw me. He was a 5th group guy, and he goes, Erickson, you're a medic, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, come with me, put your parachute down, come with me. That's not a good sign when you're on a Halo jump and somebody says, medic, come with me. So we get in the ambulance, we drive out, and one of the SEALs, as he put it, he was coming in the land, and he saw a guy on the ground, so he went to go land, guy on the ground actually waving at him, and he went to go land next to the guy. The guy was like this, but he was also like this. It was a 10-foot tall cactus, and the SEAL hit this cactus dead on. Now these cactus look soft. They're not soft. He hit this thing and basically stuck to it. So by the time I got there with him, he had quills all stuck in his front, down his front and everything. And so they gave me a set of hemostats, Curve Kellys, and I tried to pull one out. It was no getting them out, so I asked the instructor if I could borrow his Leatherman. He gave me his Leatherman. I ended up pulling all these quills were about that long, pulling them out of the front of this seal, top to bottom. And other than that, he seemed to be good, bruised up a little bit. Well, of course, they took him to the hospital, and lo and behold, he technically did that final jump. They wouldn't give him credit for it because he actually cracked his pelvis, his pelvic girdle, and so they said you did not successfully complete the last jump. So he got recycled. He was told he could come back to a future class, but we were that close to being the first class ever to have a 100% pass rate, and it's just because some guy was waving at the seal when he came in for a landing. One of my most memorable jumps, fast forward all my years on that Halo team, we'd go to a Halo train up. You'd get 30 jumps just in a Halo train up. Lots of great jumps. But we had a mission out. Our battalion went to the National Training Center in California. Part of it did. The other part of my battalion, they call it NTC, National Training Center. The other part of my battalion, we went to Dugway, Utah. We did a Halo train up there, and our mission was going to be my Halo sniper team for NTC. We were to Halo in behind enemy lines, actually down in Yuma, of all places, and there was going to be a chemical camp there, a chemical factory, and we were supposed to put eyes on, confirm location, and then the assault force was going to come in on helicopters in their chem bio suits. They were going to hit the target. The snipers would collapse down onto the target. We would get on the helicopter and depart with the assault force. Great mission, easy to do. So anyways, we worked in a Halo train up first. We jumped for about 10 days prior to this mission. Battalion commander and Bubba Ham, our command sergeant major, they actually came to visit, and Colonel Allen was a great guy, former enlisted, just awesome guy. He was on a Halo team, so he had a few jumps earlier in his career. Bubba Ham, command sergeant major Ham, had actually been a Halo instructor. So he had been in advanced course, thousands and thousands of jumps. He was an awesome guy. They told us, hey, we're going to jump with you tonight. Okay, this was like one of our last practice jumps before the big mission. And night jump, Dugway, Utah is a lot colder than jumping at Fort Campbell, than jumping in Kuwait, than jumping in Saudi or Jordan or California. Dugway, Utah in the middle of winter is cold. Now, you've all felt wind chill when you go outside, high winds. That's like a 5, 10, 20 mile an hour wind. Now imagine being at 25,000 feet falling at 120 miles per hour. That, my brother, is some wind chill right there. So that's what this jump was going to be. We were going to jump at 27,000 feet, and it's going to be a Halo. We were going to open at 4,000 feet above ground level. We're way up in the mountains. So the worst part of Halo jumping is the walk out to the airplane. You've got a 60-pound parachute. It's not like when civilian skydivers jump. They got these little sport parachutes, and then they've got an even smaller reserve parachute. Our parachutes are big because it has to carry a big 220-pound guy with 120 pounds of gear plus the weight of the parachute. You see what I'm saying? It's got to be able to carry like 400 pounds. So it is a big, huge square parachute. Now, if you're doing, let's say you're doing a hey-ho, you're going to open at 25,000 feet, and all your guys are going to open their parachutes, and you're going to go 20 miles. Well, if one guy has a bad parachute, his reserve has to be the exact same kind of parachute so everybody still stays together as a group. If he was using just a little round reserve while everybody else was going, he'd be just spiraling down. So not only do we carry one big parachute, we carry two big parachutes. So the parachute weighs a ton, oxygen bottles weigh a ton, heavy crappy helmet, rifle on the side, rucksack. I usually jump it behind my legs because it's easier to fly. It's easier to fly, but it's much more of a pain in the ass to walk out to the plane with because it's just beating you on the back of the legs. Walk out to the airplane, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Of course, the airplane will pull up real close, and then it always turns and goes and parks a couple hundred meters away from you. They do it on purpose. Yeah, you guys in the Air Force, I know you did it on purpose. So anyways, we go out there, and we're all on radios and comms and stuff like we always are. The colonel and sergeant major, they're not. We get on the plane, we go up to altitude, and we're punching through clouds, lots of clouds, and we get up above the clouds, and it's right about sundown, and they lower the ramp, and we're kind of flying to the from east to west, so the sun's actually behind us. And we walk out on the ramp. I happen to be like second guy back, I think. I'm right near the left edge of the ramp from me, so right edge of the plane. And my foot's getting cold. And I look down, and there's snow swirling around my boot. That's kind of cool. But looking out the back of the plane, we bank a little bit, and we turn, we start heading due south. That put the sun, the setting sun, off to the west, and we're right on top of the clouds. Literally, like the clouds are right there below us. But there's another bank of clouds above us also, and way off in the distance. Miles and miles behind the plane, there's like lightning going back and forth between the clouds. And you've got the sun's rays coming down between the two layers of clouds. So you got lightning going this way, you got the rays of sun coming this way. Blanket of gray clouds here, kind of sunny on top. Dark clouds right here with the lightning. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was beautiful, it really was. And then that light turned green. Guy in front of me went, the next guy, and off we went. Fell, and 27,000 feet. We wear an altimeter on a wrist that goes up to 12. It's not digital, it's like a clock. And we're gonna pull at 4,000 feet. So basically when it gets to the 4, no big deal when it gets around the 4, we're jumping at 27,000 feet. So it's gotta go around twice, no big deal. All right. Anyways, I go out and kind of tumble just a little bit. Got a bunch of gear on. Hard to judge things because I'm in the clouds. And I finally straighten out and I look at my altimeter, and I can't read it. It's got condensation on the altimeter. No big deal. You just wipe it. You reach over. You got to be careful because if you move your arm wrong, you'll start tumbling again. You remember, I'm falling 120 miles an hour. I reach over, I move my arm, move my hand across my altimeter, and it gets a little clearer, but not much. I still can't read it, and I'm thinking, why can't I read this thing? Why is it still cloudy? And I thought about it, and I want to show you on my mask. All right, this is my helmet. So what I did was I reached up and ran my thumb across my visor, and when I did that, of my Nomex gloves, as I ran it across, all this frost was coming up. I could see it blowing away. I'm doing 120 miles an hour. My visor had started frosting over. That's that's first time that's ever happened. So anyways, I clean off my visor, I look down, I can see now. Great, cool. It's on 7. Okay, am I at 7,000 feet or am I at 19,000 feet? How long did I tumble? How long did it take me to get all that stuff off of my visor? I was at 27, 25, 24, 23. It's on 7. It's coming down to 6. Okay, now what's the difference here? Because if it's on 6, am I at 6,000 feet or am I at 18,000 feet? I think I'm at 18,000 feet. I should be at 18,000 feet. It didn't take that long, right? I got to let it go around one more time. What about if I'm wrong? What about if it's really at 6,000 feet and I'm thinking I got to let it go around one more time? About the time I figure that out in the middle of this night jump, it's going to be a little bit too late. I'm thinking of all those trees planted for guys back at Fort Campbell. It gets to 5,000 feet. It gets down to 5. Is that 5,000 feet or... you see what I'm getting at? Or is that 17,000 feet? Gets down to 4. Should I be deploying my parachute or am I at 16,000 feet? It gets down to 3. I look down, I can't see nothing. There's clouds. I'm in solid cloud cover. Am I at 3,000 feet or am I at 15,000 feet? It gets down to 2. And I'm like, should I deploy my reserve? Or am I still at 14,000 feet? It gets down to 1. Do I deploy my reserve? Do I pull my reserve? So I'm looking at it, and it hit 12, and then it went to 11. I was like, shit, I still got a whole nother minute up here. What am I going to do? Got another minute. It gets boring. There's not a lot you can do. You're falling for 2 minutes. So anyway, as it goes back around again, I hit, and it's cold, brother. It's cold as hell. I've got insulated gloves on, my Nomex gloves, but I had liners on underneath. I open up my parachute, no big deal. I actually punched out of the clouds, talking. I could see the low guy. You can see the chem lights on his parachutes. We all check in. We all stack our parachutes, and we're all heading in, talking. I'm just, man, my hands are cold as hell. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm so glad my team sergeant told me to put those hand warmers, the wool liners underneath. And I remembered watching the colonel when he pulled out his helmet bag. He had a helmet just like mine, but his Nomex gloves, he didn't have any liners. As a matter of fact, he had the fingers cut off of his first 2 fingers on either hand. He said that was just how he did it. You're not allowed to jump like that. No big deal. The sergeant major, who's a professional skydiver, said he's going to stay with the colonel the whole time, blah, blah, blah. We all land right at what we call land at the X, but it's actually a V, a wind arrow, showing you which way the wind's going. Land right there, beautiful landing, and we wait and we wait. We start counting. Guys have already put their chutes in the trucks. It's cold out here. We want to get going. And all of a sudden, the sergeant major shows up. We're like, where's the colonel? He's like, I can't find him. Like, what do you mean you can't find him? He's like, I lost him in the clouds. Okay, well, we end up finding the colonel, and he'd gotten busted up a little bit. Turns out what happened, he deployed his parachute fine, but his hands had gotten so cold that he couldn't grasp the brakes to steer the parachute. His hands were that numb. He basically had stumps. And I won't say that it was his backup AR square that fired his parachute, but anyways, he landed safely. But I believe in learning from other people's mistakes. If it's cold as hell and people are saying you need warmer gloves, get warmer gloves. I spend good money on gloves now. So anyways, you young Halo skydivers out there, I want you to learn from the colonel's mistake. I'm just, thank God that Colonel Allen is still with us. I never had any bad jumps, guys. Never had to deploy my reserve. A lot of guys can't say that. But anyway, the world is a better place with Colonel Allen in it, and I'm just glad he is still with us. Good jump, uneventful for me. We immediately went into mission planning the next day for our big mission. Our big mission was, like I said, we were supposed to infill the sniper teams, and we were supposed to go put eyes on. Now, we were going to have 3 sniper teams, 3 different directions on the target. Now, at the same time this MC-130 was going to halo us in, there was a Air Force STS team. They were going to halo in also, a 4-man team. And then when we landed on the ground, our 3 sniper teams were going to go put eyes on, and the STS team, they were going to go do something else. Mark some drop zone or do whatever it is Air Force guys do. But we all had radios, and the STS guys did not. All right, that's just part of it. Now, we're jumping into Yuma, Arizona, and this was going to be a blind jump. Now, I mentioned earlier that we had the wind arrow. That's where they mark the ground with lights to let us see the actual direction of the wind. I also mentioned that if you don't know the direction of the wind, you're hitting really, really hard, really hard. We always know the direction of the wind. They would always give it to us in training. We would always know the direction of the wind. And so long as you were facing into the wind, even if it was a 10-mile-an-hour wind, no big deal. You come in at half brakes. Parachute does 17 miles an hour, 15, 13, whatever it is. You'd hit the ground at about 7 miles an hour, no big deal. This was going to be a blind jump. We weren't going to know what the winds were. Okay, no big deal. We had to set up the low guy. You know, we would stack our parachutes, and when we came in, the low guy, when he hit one, you could see what direction his parachute fell with the wind. There's also ways you can figure it out at altitude, okay? You can do it, no big deal, all right? But in addition to that, we had 2 guys on our A team that were not Halo qualified. They were static line airborne qualified, but they were not Halo qualified. We still wanted them on this mission. It was a training mission, so what the deal was, what we were going to do is the MC-130 Special Ops aircraft was going to come in, nap of the earth, and at 1,200 feet, they were going to send those 2 guys out first, Jeff Frensley and John Pace. They were going to land on the ground, and then they were going to put out 2 lights, 1 red and 1 green, and we would land green to red. They would, in other words, they would land on the ground and go to the middle of the drop zone. They would check the wind direction, and they'd put the red in the direction the wind was coming from, and the green light over here, about 20 meters apart, something like that, 5 meters or 15 feet. Then when we came in, we would see the red light and the green light. The red light's not as bright as the green one. As you guys all know, green lasers are brighter than red lasers, but these are beanbag lights, big beanbag lights. They jumped them in their rucksacks, and when we got under canopy, we would line up green to red. Pretty easy to do. Line up on the bright green one and go to the dim red one, and we would be fine. Piece of cake. Well, sounds great. We can do this. Excellent plan. We get ready to jump, and we got a phone call saying that old guy from our unit is still an instructor out there at Yuma, and they were going to be the DZ party, the drop zone party. So to call in the aircraft, make everything legal and everything. But again, it was going to be a blind jump. So we get, and again, I've got so much junk strapped to me, big, huge rucksack. I'm jumping a bolt-action sniper rifle, got it down my side, and we get out there, and blind drop zone, no big deal. I exit the plane, and I'm spinning like a top. I'm actually having to have one arm out this way, one arm this way, one leg sticking straight out, just to keep from spinning. Come down, open my parachute, and it opens. I'm about 3,000 feet above the ground, and I look straight down, literally straight down, is the green light. The green light is right there, and the red light. I can see the red light plain as day. I can see a bright green light and an even brighter, really bright red light. And I was like, this is piece of cake. The part that nobody knew, not the air crew, not the colonel, not us, not the Air Force guys, was the DZ party, the drop zone party, to help us out. They didn't know we were parachuting in the two guys first. They didn't know the plan with the red light and the green light to mark wind direction. They didn't know that. And that's all rolling hills. It's all rolling hills. They didn't know we had planned to do that. What they knew was this was a blind jump, and they wanted to help us out. These are fellow Green Berets. So one of them took a railroad flare and popped the railroad flare and dropped it. He dropped the railroad flare. Now remember, everyone knows, the Air Force guys, all the guys jumping with me on my A team, we're all supposed to land green to red. Line up green with red, land green to red. So I start coming straight down. Here's the green, here's this bright red thing. I'm coming straight down on it. I turn my parachute, what I thought was following green to red, and I start going the wrong way. So I turn back. I'm facing into the wind. I'm coming straight down, and which tells me the wind is blowing just as strong as my parachute will go. It's blowing 17 miles an hour. We'll say 15 miles an hour. We'll do easy math for you. I got a 15-mile-an-hour wind pushing me this way. My parachute runs 15 miles an hour. They're countering each other, so I'm coming straight down. So I start coming straight down, and I look down, and here's a really, really bright red light, and here's a green light right here. And I'm thinking maybe they put them down wrong. And then I see a real dim red light over here. And I look down at the bright red light, and I saw smoke coming off of it. Remember, I'm coming straight down. All the other parachutists, they're way out there, way out where they're supposed to be. I wasn't where I was supposed to be because I had been spinning so bad. I'm coming straight down. I realize what happens, like, holy shit, that's a railroad flare. I can see the smoke coming off of it. So I have a bright red railroad flare. I have a green light, and I have a really dim beanbag light over here. I know I need to land green to dim red, but everybody else that's out there, all they see is bright red and bright green. They don't know about this dim red over here, and they're all just flying around. So anyways, I get on the radio and I'm telling everybody, I'm like, hey, look, that's some kind of flare or smoke grenade or something, but the wind direction is 180 degrees off. You need to land bright red to green, then to the dim red one. And everybody starts talking, okay, so we kind of understood what's going on. Some guys aren't listening, some are. I'm coming in, I'm probably 200 feet off the ground. I'm coming straight down. I'm gonna land easy as a baby. Right at the last second, this Air Force guy goes flying right underneath me. His parachute passed right under my feet. I'm landing with the wind. He landed the other way, going green light to red flare. In other words, he hit the ground 15-mile-an-hour parachute with 15-mile-an-hour wind. He hit the ground at 30 miles an hour. And I mean, he hit hard. And then the next guy, and then the next guy. These guys just all start hitting and rolling up, hit and rolling up. I came down, landed, think, boop. Nice and easy jump, landed, packed my parachute, everything, and we start having everybody check in. All my guys knew about it, heard about it on the radio, and they still hit hard. This was a bad jump. This was a real bad jump. The Air Force guys were all busted up. We start helping people over. Now, we're still in the middle of this training mission here. I get all my guys collected up. Took forever for us to find the captain. The captain was off wherever. We finally got him, but Chad, my weapons guy, he hit so hard he stuck the barrel of the saw through his calf. He actually stuck it through his uniform into his leg. I had another guy, Bobby Kyle, he'd already twisted his ankle on another jump, so he had a brace on his ankle. He had laced up his desert boot over the top of it. He hit the ground so hard, he knocked his boot off. Those of you that wear lace-up boots, I want you to think about that for a second. How hard do you have to hit the ground to knock your boot off? Pretty hard. So anyways, I had my aid bag, sniper rifle, all this other stuff. We're all in this big bush. We don't bury the parachutes in training. We all consolidated them. What are we going to do? Everybody's busted up. I used up all my Nubane, which is like synthetic morphine. Shot everybody up. I didn't have any left. Finally got the captain there, and we've got to have the eyes on the target before the sun comes up, and nobody's fit to move. So finally, captain, team sergeant, everybody, we all start talking, and I'm like, look, I'm good to go. The team sergeant, we got a brand new team sergeant right before the op, John Pace, he's good to go. We got to go put eyes on. Me and him are the only ones that can move right now. So everybody else, you guys wait here. We'll take off. We'll go put eyes on the target. And we did. We ended up departing. We walked, got eyes on target. Eventually, the other teams, they all got patched up and taken care of, cached the parachutes, and they ended up getting eyes on target a day or two after us. Target went down without a hitch. But those guys were, everybody's busted up bad. I never heard what happened to the Air Force guys. I know they were tore up real bad. I didn't really care because they were the Air Force. If they had agreed to run radios like we did on our frequencies, I could have told them that they were going wrong. Anyways, we got back later on, and I had some of the scuba guys were there, and they were talking about how, swimming, and there's sharks and everything else, and all this dive bubbles and sharks and more sharks and man-eating mermaids and whatever. And I just had to hang my head and I had to look at these guys. The whole time I'm thinking about Bobby hitting so hard he knocked his boot off, Chad sticking his thing through his calf, the colonel, all these other guys that I've seen gotten hurt just in the last week. And I had to grab these guys and grab them. I was like, at least nobody was throwing a planet at you. Because that's what this is. You're falling and someone is throwing a freaking planet at you. Anyway, to me, that's the best way to explain what a halo jump is in the dark wearing O2. So anyways, gents, that's this month's Story Time with Carl. I hope you got a kick out of it. And thanks again for your patronage. I take all that money you guys have, and we're really putting out some great videos. I got some good ones coming up on the horizon. If you know anybody else that wants to help support us, please point them in our direction, because every little bit helps. Again, thanks, and I'll see you next time. Y'all take care. Shoot straight.